Hi, welcome to the St. Louis Goalkeeping Academy's two-part series, mental training exercises. Today we're going to be talking about visualization. In the first part of the series here, we're going to give you a little bit of background about visualization. We're going to tell you where it started from. We're going to tell you how it works a little bit from the scientific perspective. We're also going to give you a couple different ways you can apply this technique. In the second part series, we're actually going to take you through about a 10-minute mental training exercise, so that way when you guys are by yourselves, you know how to use this correctly. Okay, so let's start on the background of visualization. Where did visualization come from? When did it start? How was it first thought about? How was it first conceived of? Visualization was really developed by the Soviets back in the late 70s, early 80s, back when Russia was then the Soviet Union. By their sports psychologists who had an idea or had a thought that somehow maybe that the brain could enhance, by training the brain, it could enhance your performance on the field. And they thought that since the majority of athletes who were training, 99% of the training that they had done up to that point was physical. It worked on either technique, a little bit of work, maybe worked on tactics, things of that nature, but very little amount of time in an athlete's training session was devoted to mental. So they wanted to do some investigation. So they came up with a program where they took their Olympic track and field athletes, their track and field team, they broke them up into 4 separate teams within their group. They took one group, which was 100% training. They kept them on the same normal training regimen that they had been up to until that point. So it was 100% training, physical training. The second group they gave them 30% mental training, is a visualization technique that they had developed, and 70% of their training methods were devoted to the normal physical training regimen. The third group that they set up was 50-50. Half of it was physical training, half of it was visualization. And the fourth group they gave them 30% physical training and 70% mental training, visualization. All right. They studied all the athletes. They charted their progress over the course of 4 months. And during that time, over the course of 4 months, they found that the group that did the best, that succeeded, was the group that did 30% physical training and 70% mental training. And this kind of gave them an idea how powerful the mind is. So they went about studying it a little further, refining their techniques a bit. And basically the way it works is it's just your imagination. You're using your imagination, all right, to see yourself through your own mind's eye, through your own body, in performance, in competition. And the brain really doesn't, because the imagination is so strong, the brain doesn't know the difference, all right? The body has muscle memory, the muscles have memory just like your brain does. It sends signals to the muscle memory, and so the muscles just assume that that's what's going on, that you're training, that you're in competition like that. So that the idea is that while you're imagining yourself during competition, everything that you do is perfect. You complete the task perfectly. Whichever skill set you're working with, the outcome is always perfect. And when that time comes, the brain is mapping those procedures. So when the time comes in an actual competition where a moment that's similar to the moment that you imagine, the brain has already seen that. It's already made a little movie of that, all right, in the neurons in your head, and it responds accordingly to what you imagine. Thus, when you perform it in a game, things seem to slow down. They talk about athletes who find themselves in the zone, or that things seem to be very slow for them. This is part of that process. The brain has already seen it because your imagination has already imagined it, either the exact circumstance or something extremely similar, and it just performs the task without you really having to do much of anything. The body already responds because it's there in the muscle memory, because you've imagined it, and so that's kind of how the process works, without boring you with too much science in terms of how the neurons fire and the electronic impulses that go to all the muscles and stuff like that. So let's take you through in the second phase here. I'm going to walk you through about a 10-minute segment of how to use visualization. It's something that you should probably use. I recommend using it every day, 10 to 15 minutes generally, no more than 20 minutes. 20 minutes becomes a little boring for you, all right, and you start to lose your concentration. So in this second series, we'll go over how to do this.